Welcome, Solara here. I hope you guys are doing well today. I am back again with another blackout message. As I said in the previous messages, I got a lot of an onslaught of downloads over the past, I want to say 10 days now. And I'm just here doing some shorter form content, mostly in blackout format because it's just easier for me. I'm doing it this way because I just want to kind of clear my literal channel of all of these messages, get them out to who they might be for, and keep it moving. I'm also shaking up the energy in general, shaking up the energy on this platform, on this channel, by changing the way I show up here for a spell. And we'll see. I'm just kind of going with the flow and what my guides are showing me I need to do, because in all frankness, this is also, as I come back on here and show up more, I'm also fighting through and breaking a lot of the throat chakra and shut up spells and fuckery that have been attempted against me, especially over the past few months. They've been really adamant. That would be the word, adamant. So those spells can go fuck themselves, as well as the beings who are behind them, whether they're on this planet or off this planet. Many of them are off planet beings. Yes, I see and know who you are, and I also know you're way out of fucking bounds right now. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I'm here to give you some downloads, and also to pull some cards and see what other messages come out also. So welcome if you're visiting for the first time, welcome if you are returning, welcome if you've been with me from the beginning for the last few years, or you joined somewhere along the way. I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude to those of you who actually care, okay? Because I love the fact that there's a community that has been built from my being on this channel, and I really appreciate those of you who genuinely care about me, care about one another, care about the planet. And I thank you for being with me in this time, especially in the past year and 3 months. It's been really tough, and I still have been showing up here because this is ultimately what I came here to do. I came here to speak. I came here to share. I came here to be myself, to be that emanation of source that is expressed through my energy signature. And part of my energy signature is to break down this hidden information and to share it with the collective in the interest of helping you break into your own personal brand of power, and to also feel grounded in your truth and confirmed in what it is that you are sensing and you are feeling. And I'm here especially to do it for those of you who've been through a fuckload of trauma and targeted attacks, very specifically to mess with your energy field, to make you less receptive and open to being able to be who you are, because you're constantly healing and battling through these attacks. I'm here to be a voice and to help you navigate through those storms, and as such, I'm in the storm with you. And I just thank those of you who see that and who recognize my humanity and don't just come here to use me or treat me like I'm supposed to be a robot, just here to give the information that you need when you want it and how you want it, in accordance with your own personal seasons and cycles, which really have little or nothing to do with me, because there are a few characters like that. I've come across quite a few of them, especially on this platform. And so I do want to recognize the myriad of you. There's so many of you that aren't, and so many of you that have been with me in this down season and have been with me, supporting me on, on Substack, and when they fucked me over there, came over to my platform and supporting me in a myriad of ways, even just sending me sweet little notes or emails or comments. I appreciate it all, and I just want to say thank you today. And with that being said, I'm now going to get into the download that this reading is going to be based upon. And so here it goes. So I heard you got a handle on your fears and are playing the game as if you made it. You got a handle on your fears and are playing the game as if you made it, because you did, right? Making the rules as you go along, and reality is starting to bend to your command. So you got a handle on your fears, and you're playing the game as if you made it because you did. And what I'm feeling that message is speaking is that there is an awakening and a remembrance that is rising in you, if this message is for you, that is helping you to actually connect with every way you've created your own reality, whether consciously or unconsciously. And it's also bringing you back, it's like tying you back to the threads of previous incarnations, where you're able to connect the themes that you've been repeating in this lifetime. You're able to see the actual thread, and you're able to connect with the grander story as opposed to the micro story you've been living out in this lifetime. And in doing so, you are, it's like you're breaking through even like greater barriers than you were before, when your focus was predominantly getting through the energies as they were presenting themselves in this lifetime. And the reason for that is because as you are connecting to the thread, you are connecting also to the powers that you lost along the way. So we didn't just wake up and land in this mess of a false matrix as it is now. This is something that happened over a period of many ages, eras, lifetimes, where we were constantly being stripped of our power in very, very violent and abusive ways, sometimes unto death. And then in that state of being ridiculed, shamed, humiliated, heartbroken, we would die. And the thing about, existing on any plane, but let's just focus on this one, existing on this plane, right? So everything literally is energy, vibrations and frequencies, everything is, right? And so the way that they got us stuck in the reincarnation cycles of the false matrix was by making sure we died in a lower frequency. Because understand and overstand that the false matrix is was, I should say, because fast dying, was an imprisonment and enslavement soul harvesting complex, where in order to keep us enslaved and trapped, they had to keep us in a certain frequential reality. And so they had to keep us in fear, in guilt, in sadness, in hatred, in anger. They had to keep us fully repressed and therefore pushed down into lower emotional states. And because this planet frequentially was aligned with lower emotional states, if you died in a lower emotional state, you'd be stuck in the same frequency that matched, which was this plane. I hope I'm making sense here. So there's something here about like there's a going backwards, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And I want to say also that if you're not consciously aware of it, then some of the signs that this message might be for you, other than the confirmations that you might already feel in your soul from what I've said so far, might be things like being just really tired over the past few days, few weeks, going through these periods of exhaustion. That is we call it an ascension symptom, but let's break down partially why it's an ascension symptom. Because many of you are time traveling, literally. You are being pulled very rapidly through timelines. Sometimes you're being pulled back, just to experience the feeling of it through a situation that's occurring in real time. You're being pulled back into an emotion from another storyline, from another timeline, and you are being given the opportunity to alchemize it through the present situation. And then sometimes once you're able to do that, you get pulled forward to the place where you would have been if you had alchemized that previously. Okay, so there's a lot of timeline traveling and jumping right now, and indeed this time of the year, it often is the case. By the time the solstice hits in December, the winter solstice, or the December solstice, the summer solstice if you're in the southern hemisphere, so we'll just call it the December solstice. By the time the December solstice hits in Capricorn season, we go through this period collectively of what begins like a timeline shuffling period, where we begin to kind of have a lot of options become open to us in what we're going to choose to materialize and solidify once the sun begins to move into Aries. Okay, and that can be a really confusing time because so much is happening all at once, especially internally. And as Ascension has picked up, that energy from the Capricorn to Aries season window has become even more intense because we are navigating and journeying through so many timelines. There are so many more open timelines, and the reason why there are more open timelines is because as we break free from the constructs of the false matrix that were placed upon the planet energetically, and the false grids are broken and the true grids are being liberated back into proper functioning, all of the timelines that we've experienced where we've been stuck in the karmic loop cycles, they begin to become active, meaning that this is how we're able to heal ourselves again. We're able to heal ourselves from being stuck in the karmic loop once we begin to see that we're in the karmic loop, once we begin to see the patterns within the timelines. And we couldn't do that before because literally we didn't have access to that. We were locked into certain situations. The timelines that we were looping through were kind of locked in. We couldn't even access them on a conscious level. So there's so much fuckery that was being done to us, in different ways. And since Ascension really began to accelerate this window between Capricorn and Aries season, where timelines start to shuffle, meaning that we get to start to experience like the many timelines that we have running or that are still open because we haven't completed a lesson, they start to kind of enter into our reality in different ways. And a lot of the time we're not aware that's happening, but when we are consciously aware, then we can begin to wade through a lot of the old stories and experiences that we were unconsciously repeating because we didn't have access to the information that we needed in order to rise, in order to complete the lesson. So I'm hoping this is making sense. So to go back to one of the symptoms of what it is I'm speaking here, where you are like traveling through timelines and getting through these lessons very quickly, and feeling very tired, I always like to kind of compare it to when you travel across time zones. So I'm in the UK, I'm in London, and if I were to travel to California, to LA, for example, LA I think is like presently like 7 hours behind. So it's 1:51 for me here as I record. So in LA it's like I think 6:51 in the morning. So I might be up at 12 midnight and my whole sleep schedule would be off if I just hopped on a plane and got to LA. In other words, it would take time for me to adjust. I might be wired sometimes and extremely exhausted at other times. Because for me, I'm very sensitive to shifts and changes. It takes me longer to adjust to traveling internationally, especially. So it might take me a minute. And in that, I will be going back and forth between being really fatigued and wired, and that's kind of what it is that we're going through. With these timeline jumps without actually getting up and moving and getting on a plane and going somewhere else. We are moving across time. We are moving across timelines, across time zones, and we're moving across sometimes to completely different eras. Some of you are time traveling all the way back to the inception of the pattern and the cycle that began for some of you with the fall of the previous golden age, and some of you are going back to when it actually became more cemented in your reality. And what's been coming up really a lot recently for me, thematically speaking, is a lot of this stuff in the age of Aries also really took a downturn, and I don't, in all transparency, I don't read or study these things at this point, because when I began to really open my channel in a conscious way, my guides told me to stop looking at the information presented to me in books and on the internet and all of that. And they said to me, what you're going to unlock within you is within your soul. It's not in books, it's not on the internet. And even if you come across things that are similar, it will either be a confirmation or it might be a distortion. So you are to get your information from your soul. And that's what I've been doing this whole time. So I say that because I haven't read up about the age of Aries. I don't really know many of its themes, but I do feel like it probably was a very, very dark and oppressive time, and the age of Pisces just kind of took off from there. But at least the age of Pisces, things began to lighten up. I know it might not feel that way, and also we had more things coming online, like some of the technologies to control us even more. But I will say that in the age of Pisces, there was a lot of martyrdom, but as we moved closer to the 20th century, the things that once upon a time they could kill us for, they couldn't anymore, or they wouldn't anymore, at least not to the extent of the suffering and the sacrifices that were made of us in previous timelines, right? So they had to find other ways to oppress us and suppress us and repress us. And that's because the karmic debt they were racking up from doing that to us, it was becoming too much, and it wasn't working in their favor, which is it's a whole other story. But my point is that the age of Aries is coming up a lot recently thematically, and I feel like for many of us, the loop that we entered into, maybe in the age of Leo, became very, very concretized through that age in any incarnations that we were here on this planet. So to go back to the downloads now. So the getting a handle on your fears. So I'm feeling like you had a lot of, I don't want to call them unnatural fears, but I do want to call them, I want to say that they were fears that would be triggered by situations whereby the reaction and the internal response often felt greater than the actual occurrence, almost kind of like a PTSD symptom, right? And many of us have had that, and the truth be told, many of us, we have it as a result of abuse and trauma from this lifetime. But for those of you who can remember your childhood, you might even remember always having those fears. I know that for me, I remember just being a really fearful child, very easily triggered, highly sensitive. And it took me a really long time to realize that was partly the reason why. Because one of the greatest detriments to our ability to heal on this planet is that nobody actually talks about what's going on truthfully with them. Nobody talks about the internal struggles and battles, because then for one thing, you were made to feel as if you were alone in your struggle, and as if everybody else had it together but not you. And that was very intentional to further traumatize us and to keep us blocked and repressed. And another thing is that the false matrix controllers made sure that when we did speak internally about what was happening, that we would be made to feel as if we were weak and we were victims and we couldn't get over it. And the truth of the matter is, we were victims, you were victimized, and you actually can't get over your victim story until you begin to speak about it and do what you need to do on your own terms to process it. And some of us have been processing victimhood stories that aren't just from this lifetime, they're from many lifetimes, and they've culminated in events with certain individuals here in this lifetime too. And because we're in an ascension and it's time for us to actually be able to break out of these karmic loops and these struggles and these cycles, we have to we've been given the invitation to be able to dive into those stories. But healing happens in layers. It doesn't happen linearly. It doesn't happen instantly. Once you heal yourself of one layer of the energy, you're taken deeper. And it feels like with this particular the energy that's coming through here is like you've gotten to the root of the fear of what caused you to be so afraid of life, for one thing. And really ultimately what it was, if we're being completely honest, is you were taught to fear yourself, and you were taught to fear your ability to be a good judge of what it is that you're here to do, to have good judgment of character. You were taught to fear your power. You were taught to literally fear yourself, and you were taught to fear source. You were taught to fear God. That's part of the great Judeo-Christian, like philosophies and rules that were designed to keep us in check. We were given this idea of a very masculine, violent God who hated us, and then because we were so bad, and the only way that we could actually be okay is because he had to send his only son that he actually liked, and his son had to die for us. So now we're forever indebted to that too, which is all a bunch of bollocks. That's not the true story, right? So it was all designed to keep us in this loop of feeling bad and guilty for existing, pretty much, and therefore fearing ourselves, fearing what we're capable of, etc. And the fear is the barrier. The fear is always what will keep us from moving forward into our greatness. And so fear has been utilized, fear and shame and guilt. I call it the trauma trifecta. Those are really the three main fences that are used. There are others also. If you look at the vibrational scale, every emotion creates a barrier. And that barrier is either there to protect you, but if you don't know how to wield the power of that emotion in the interests of your own evolution and protection, it becomes your prison. So pride is there, for example, to help you rise into your power and not allow other people who are purposely trying to usurp you in that position of being empowered and in power over yourself, for you to rise up in pride and to speak on your own behalf and to stand up. But if you are too prideful, then it can keep you from rising into love, right? So all of these emotions that we are going through internally, they are barriers that are there to protect us, and they are barriers that are there to also keep us in alignment and in harmony with self, because we all have a different emotional experience, and we all have different ways we need to be calibrated to be in harmony with self and our mission, because we're not all the same, right? So some people are supposed to dive more deep into their shadow, and they are supposed to live more in their shadow frequencies, because that's who they are. They've mastered that to a point where they won't get lost in their shadow, but that part is needed in their own evolution ability to be who they are, but also as a protective mechanism for the collective. And oftentimes those beings are the ones who've been castigated the most, because they've been pulled into like deep shame to get them to kind of reject their own shadows, because again, your shadow is a form of protection. Like, I don't want to dive too deep in that because these readings aren't supposed to be super long and I'm already on a train. But you know, I've talked about it before, both in my writing and in a lot of my previous videos, about how your shadow is literally, it's a protector. It's connected to your ego construct, and it's in balance. It's there to protect your divinity. So you got a handle on your fears, and you're playing the game now as if you made it, because you're remembering how you got into this position. You're remembering how you ultimately created this scenario that you find yourself in now, based upon, of course, like pressure and bullying and you know, everything else we had to put up within the false matrix. But in seeing and recognizing that you created it, you're able to see how you can uncreate it. And you're getting, what I'm feeling like is that you're really tapping into your gifts, your talents, your powers, like being really creative about how you're doing this now too, because you're losing your fear around going into places internally to do things that shift your reality on all planes, because you're not afraid anymore to venture into places where you were told not to go. So you're making the rules as you go along, and because you're making the rules as you go along, reality is starting to bend to your command, because the rules that you make for yourself are ultimately, this is like Sagittarius energy. We're actually not here to follow anyone else's rules or guidelines, because nobody actually has a direct connection to our energy signature and divine blueprint in its organic form except us and source. So really the only way for us to really tune into that and activate it wholly is by following our own internal guidance back into that position. Now, other people can help, other people can guide you deeper into yourself, but that's ultimately all they're doing. You know, they're guiding you deeper into yourself because ultimately you have the key. And once you have the key and you unlock this wisdom in yourself again, then you are able to kind of connect to your own personal handbook and the rules you need to rise and to ascend and to still kind of be on this earth, but be a multi-dimensional being, bringing back like your God powers and your abilities here. So you're realizing that now. You're realizing that you have to make your own rules to get to where it is you need to be. And in that, it's like you're shutting down every external energy, being, opinion, whatever it is that wants to come at you and tell you that you got to play the game any other way than what you are internally feeling is right for you. And because you're doing that, because this also exemplifies like this strong belief in self, this strong loyalty to self, this strong loyalty to your source codes and who you actually are, as opposed to who the false matrix needs you to be in order to keep energy harvesting you, or who other beings need you to be in order to keep like taking from you. Because you're being so true to yourself, reality is bending in accordance with what it is that you desire and what it is that you need. Now, this is Virgoan energy, like on steroids right now, because it's the Virgo energy in the zodiac wheel. It's Virgo medicine that begins to teach us about how to be so loyal and so true to self that by the time we get to Sagittarius in the zodiac, we are able to walk that shit out and create our own rules and philosophies that help us to live in our godhood and our true divine blueprint on earth. And not for nothing, Virgo and Sagittarius, numerologically speaking, are the signs of the zodiac that are representing 2025, because 2025 breaks down to a number 9. 9 is connected astrologically to Sagittarius, and in the tarot to the Hermit card, which is Virgo. So it would make sense that those of you who are doing the work and are in alignment with all that these ascension energies and planetary shifts are affording you at this time are entering into this. Okay, so another message that was coming through is that your nervous system is being upgraded. So you're going through nervous system upgrades. And I touched on this, I think, a few weeks ago, where I was saying that some of you may be experiencing this shift in how things that once upon a time, scared you, startled you, would pull you into into anxiety and worry. Those things no longer have the power to do that anymore. And some of those very same scenarios, situations, triggers, they might be coming towards you, and you might just notice how you're just unperturbed, right? And that is a good indication that your nervous system is upgrading, resetting itself back into a state where it's not being controlled by fear. It's not being controlled by the fear that constantly had you in survival. Because whenever you pull someone into survival or lack, they will act against their truth. And they knew this in the false matrix, which is exactly why they did it. And the best example I can give to you is, like, many people will look at a person who steals something in a shop, like steals a loaf of bread or something, and they'll get on their high horse and they'll be the moral police, being like, that person's a thief, yada yada yada. But if the tables were turned, and that person who's judging that other being who's stealing the loaf of bread, maybe because they're hungry and need to feed their children, if the tables had turned and that person was hungry too and didn't have any money, they wouldn't be on their high horse. They'd probably be in there stealing that bread also in order to eat, right? So now I'm losing what it was I was saying about this. Bear with me a second. It's going to come back. Survival and fear states. So when you are pulled into dire survival situations, you are more likely to act against your higher wisdom and act against what it is that makes you who you are out of desperation. That's just the truth of human nature, because you need the survivalist instinct in you at that point becomes stronger than any moral high ground, because you got to eat or you're going to die. You get what I'm saying? And in the false matrix, they knew this, which is why they wanted us constantly in survival mode and then shaming us for being in that state. Like I've said many times before, the false matrix was based upon narcissism templates, right? Narcissistic abuse templates, which is why it's so rampant right now that it's coming out, people talking about narcissists and all of this stuff. It's like it was in all of us. We were all programmed into the narcissistic template game. We all had our part to play in upholding it. And the reason why so much of it's being exposed is because we're healing from it, right? So, you're moving out of like survival and lack states internally, very specifically, because your external reality might not have fully shifted. That's going to be the next thing that's going to change. And you might already see glimmers of how that's happening. But internally, you're no longer being manipulated by the original cues that would pull you into those fear and lack states and get you to abandon yourself or walk away from like your highest expression of who you are. You are gaining strength in the wisdom of who you are, and therefore able to stand your ground no matter what stories, people, situations come at you from the false matrix to try to pull you back into a fear state. Okay, so we're going to go into cards quickly. And this is going to be a quick look in the cards, because I think I feel like I actually pretty much broke that down pretty succinctly. So let's see. Let's just get some guidance here. If this is your message, what it is that you can do to help yourself through this window of energy more powerfully, Let's. I'm going to go into one of my guidance decks for this, one of the decks that I created for guidance. Let's see what comes out for you. I have 2 events coming up this weekend. I have a group Q&A this Saturday, the 15th. It's just a general Q&A where you can get a card pulled, get some channeled guidance, get some support for where you are from me in that way, as well as being in the company of other beautiful, like-minded souls. So that's happening this Saturday, March the 15th from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 6 to 9 p.m. UK time, because the time changed in America this past weekend, but it hasn't changed here in the UK yet. And then on Sunday, I am doing again my Tarotstrology group Q&A with your Chiron story and your soul mission, and what your Chiron placement has to say about that. So that's a smaller group. It's happening this Sunday, March the 16th, from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 5 to 8 p.m. UK time. So I will put the information for that in the description box below. If you are on my platform, solara.xyz, and you get Daily Alchemy, or Sunrise Salutations, if you're signed up to those newsletters, even on the free membership tier, you would have gotten my This Week with Solara post that I sent out yesterday, that also tells you about those events and how to be able to book your seat. Okay, so here we go. We got 3 colors have come out. 3 colors, 3 cards. I just saw the word color. 3 cards. So at the bottom of the deck, we do have go all in and conquer the fear, break this cycle. So I feel like this is it's 14:14 on my clock. I feel like this is kind of confirmation for what it is I've already said, in the sense that I feel like many of you have already gone all in, and or are in the actively doing this. You are all in. You are breaking the fear. You are taking the risk that once upon a time your own fear kept you out of. And for some of you, the other message I'm getting through is that there's coming a moment of I don't want to say it's testing. It's more like a moment of graduation, where you might be called to take a leap of faith that's going to be rooted solely on your belief in yourself and your path and what you deserve. And when that comes, it's going to feel like fear. You might feel a little bit afraid, because of course it's going to require you going into a place you haven't gone. It might require you living solely off your faith, right? And it might also bring up opposition internally, but also from other people. But internally, mostly because of the social programming and what other people might think, or, what people have said about you in the past and all this other stuff, and what you're capable of, or what you should do, or, a lot of us, excuse me, my voice. A lot of us made decisions that we thought were our own, but really we only made them because we were under duress, or we were under peer pressure, or we were taught it was the right thing to do, but really it went against what it was we really wanted to do, and we are still suffering as a result, and a lot of the time, those decisions where we were just trying to do what we were taught was the right thing to do, or the quote unquote logical thing to do, a lot of the time and if it didn't work out in our favor, it backfired, because really that's protection. But we were made to feel as if we were not capable of sound judgment or making good decisions for ourselves. But really, we always were. I was just having this conversation with someone a few days ago. We always were capable of making good decisions for ourselves. The problem was we were too swayed towards, people pleasing, or listening to other people, or not trusting ourselves. That was the mistake. The mistake was not being loyal to self, even though it didn't make sense to other people, or if we were loyal to self, not going all the way with that decision and turning back because we'd become intimidated, by other people, by the circumstances that always will rise when you're pushing into an area where the false matrix doesn't want you to go into, because it means you're going to access more of your power. You're always going to deal with tower moments and situations that occur that don't feel good, in order to deter you and make you feel like you made a wrong decision, and then being pushed back into a scenario where it felt safer because it was familiar, and oftentimes then being ridiculed for having taken the leap to begin with. That can really do something to the psyche. It can really cause blocks in the emotional body. And it feels like if that's been your experience, then there is a moment that's coming up now that's going to shatter that in your emotional fields. And as it shatters that, it's going to begin to open so many doors of opportunity that have been closed off to you because of not only being unable to, fully be loyal to self, but what that actually did in your energy field, and therefore caused you to push out of your energy field, and to therefore call in things that were subpar. I hope I'm making sense. So it feels like for some of you, there is a moment that's coming where you're going to be invited to go all in, to conquer a myriad of timelines that have been rooted in fear and keeping you blocked out of, certain opportunities, out of, the fullness of your self-expression. There's coming there, and it feels like you've been working up to this. There have been, especially from Capricorn to Aries season, there's been a lot of I don't want to call them baby leaps, because they probably felt like big leaps at the time, but they were ultimately preparing you for one of the greatest leaps. And this makes so much sense because we are in the final decan of Pisces, which is the 10 of Cups, right? And Pisces is the doorway out of every cycle, right? It's the 12 o'clock place on the zodiac wheel. It's where the cycle ends in order for it to begin again. And this is why when the sun moves into Aries, it's a brand new astrological year. Just like when the window into your Aries energy, or into the first house, is your ascendant. It's the beginning of something, right? The beginning of your life, right? Starts with your ascendant, kind of when you're thinking about it more, looking at the zodiac, almost chronologically. That's how it works. And I've talked about this a lot in the past, about how that Pisces Aries gateway together, it's like an alpha omega portal, right? So it would make sense, especially coming up to this full moon in Virgo that's happening this Friday the 14th, and then I believe next week we'll be moving into the sun will be moving into Aries, and then we're also in eclipse season. So we're in eclipse season with the Pisces Aries connection right now too, because the full moon in Virgo is occurring. There's going to be a partial lunar eclipse, and then the new moon in Aries is going to be the next eclipse. It's a solar eclipse. I forget if it's full or not. I don't remember, but that's the sun in Pisces for the full moon in Virgo, and the sun in Aries for the new moon in Aries. So that's a lot of ending, beginning, very suddenly, swiftly, and not for nothing, I've spoken about this before, because of the Piscean connection with the sun in Pisces. When the full moon occurs in Virgo, it acts like an extraction vortex, because Pisces is the closing out of the grand cycle. So when the sun is in Pisces, you're closing out an annual cycle. And when it's in other signs, you're closing out whatever amount of time it takes for that planet to transit through all 12 signs. You're closing out the equivalent of that time in a cycle, so I think for like the lunar calendar, for example, you're closing out cycles according to the moon every 28 to 29 days, but then when you're dealing with Saturn, I think it's 28 to 29 years, so, and that's another thing, that's another cycle we're coming to close out too, with the Saturn and Pisces energy. So a lot of closing out very magnanimously of cycles that have very specifically marred our emotional body, blocked and stagnated our emotional body to the point where we weren't able to birth our true timelines. Okay, so what else came out? We have do something that makes you feel sexy for you. So that's Aries energy. This is connecting with your passion, your creativity, your drive, your sexual force. Sex energy is pure, raw, latent creation, primordial energy that starts all things. That's sex. That's why doing working with sex energy is so potent to set off a new idea into the fabric of the time-space continuum. Like if you want to begin something very potently, or create something very powerfully, then wisely using your sexual energy in the way that it's sacredly aligned for who you are. And if you're with another person, the joined purpose you have with them, it sets things in motion very, very quickly. It begins to destroy the things that would that once upon a time kept that thing from being able to be born to, right? So this is what it's about. It's also about reconnecting to your power to create from nothing. And when I say from nothing, I'm talking about creating directly from your source codes, as opposed to pulling from looking at other things in the false matrix that you've been told that you should have and you think you want, but it's not in actual true alignment with who you actually are. So therefore you're just manifesting a reality, and you're able to do that because you're powerful to do that too. You're manifesting a reality that ultimately isn't your own, and therefore still open to the energy harvesting constructs. And they wanted people doing that, which is why they push manifestation so badly, right? They push it so much, and they push it on the basis of the false matrix ideas of success, and they have people chasing those things very specifically instead of going internally and asking their soul, what is it going to take for me to come back into harmony with myself? What is it going to take for me to be satisfied? That's what I want to create for myself. Okay, so in the same vein of thought, we have work with the color red. So we have do something that makes you feel sexy for you, and then work with the color red. And the words here are passion, desire, blood and ancestry, root chakra, and anger. So anger is another very powerful creative force that is, on par in terms of its potency with sex, which is why they also want to demonize anger and cause you to repress it, because repressed anger causes self-destruction. Right? It causes self-destruction. But when you're able to wield the power of your anger, you can bring forth justice, balance, and harmony in your timelines very, very rapidly also, when you're wielding it again in alignment with what brings harmony, what is true, what is just, what is a reflection of who you are in terms of your source code and what you're here to do on the earth planes, right? So anger can be very, very powerful for bringing you into alignment when you use it as a creative force. So passion, desire, blood and ancestry, root chakra. This is also showing me with the go all in and conquer the fear. Something, not only are you breaking a cycle and clearing something out. You are establishing a new reality. You're establishing a new lineage. You're establishing a new foundation upon which your new earth legacy is being built. And it wasn't possible for you to get to this place until you tapped back into your creator energy, and your ability to push past the false fear constructs of the matrix. You wouldn't be able to create this new lineage, this new ancestry in the earth, this new legacy, without first overcoming that. It's like you've got the key to be able to do that too. And so, like I said before, there are nervous system upgrades that have been happening, and they're occurring like from the root chakra. The root chakra is where we keep a lot of our collective trauma, our ancestral trauma, those cues that are more a response to the external energies and how it's had an effect on us over time, how it's been expressed to us through families, groups, etc. Whereas the solar plexus is where we begin to internalize our emotional and visceral personal responses to a lot of that. So the final card that came out is Return to Sender. Reversals are necessary. Now, I know some people don't agree with the returning to sender. I'm going to tell you where I sit with this now. Okay, so for me, your energy belongs to you, and other people's energy belongs to them. Whether it's what you would classify as being good energy or bad energy, it doesn't matter. If it belongs to them for their own creative purposes, they need it back. And if it's yours, you need it back too. And the only way that beings can actually rise and ascend and overcome their own karmic lessons is if they are dealing with the energy of what they've created. So returning to sender doesn't have to be this violent act of revenge. It can simply be, I'm calling back my power, I'm giving back what belongs to you, and anything that I've miscreated in excess because of it, I'm going to transmute. But I'm not going to transmute anything that belongs to someone else, because then I am dipping into what it is that they need to do for themselves. Now, some of you are here, we have that gift to transmute energy, and you use that in accordance with your own discernment and discretion, because there are times where people are very, very aware and, conscious and doing the work, and they just need a little bit of a helping hand. And that's very different than trying to push your karmic responsibility on someone else. It's a completely different scenario. So this is just indicating to me also that some of this fear-based energy that you're holding, it, especially with this root chakra, working with the color red, do something that makes you feel sexy for you. This is a lot of fear that is very rooted in shame-based narratives that have been born from other people's like shame for themselves, repression for themselves, that they've tried to hoist onto you and therefore make you afraid of that expression in yourself. So one example of this would be, for example, if you grew up in a family that was very, very, let's say they were very, very religious, or they had this moral high ground, and you were taught that certain ways of expressing yourself were wrong. For example, you couldn't express yourself sexually or talk about sex, etc., and you've been carrying this fear around the expression of your sexual energy, and you don't realize just how detrimental it is to your ability to create on your own terms, because your sexual desires connect you with your creatorhood. And so it's not for you to carry other people's shame, repression, opinions, because that's what they are, opinions around sex and your sexual expression and what you are able to do with the sexual energy that you've been endowed with. It's not for anyone else to decide what you do that with except for yourself. Okay, so if you're carrying around these philosophies and these narratives that are barring you out of your own ability to connect with that creator greater force within you, then it's time to offload those themes, those narratives, those projections, those deflections that have caused you to repress yourself, and put them in their rightful place, which is that's not your problem anymore. You give it back to those beings who still are trying to force that onto you because they haven't dealt with it within themselves. So that's just one example that's coming up. Okay. So I guess this is longer than I had anticipated, and that's fine. That's okay. Because I feel like I'm not quite ready to close out. I feel like I want to get another message. I'm going to go into my Herbal Wisdom deck and see what herbs and plants want to come through for you in this scenario. For those of you who don't know, I am a qualified medical herbalist, qualified in Western herbal medicine, but I use it to practice energy work as well as medicinally. It's very interesting because herbs, the same ways they act, their bioactive expression matches perfectly with their esoteric or metaphysical expression too, which is really cool. Okay, so what came out here? Oh, I love it. Blue malva and marigold. So blue malva is this beautiful, beautiful flower that's almost like a very almost like it's almost indigo, and it makes such a beautiful oil, a really softening, like emollient type oil. If you take the flowers and you infuse oils for the body, just really a beautifully gentle oil that moisturizes and soothes and forms a barrier to protect the skin. Blue malva. Now, blue malva, when you're working with it energetically speaking, it's there to help promote flexibility and malleability, to help you actually begin to access deeper emotions and deeper situations and scenarios that you've closed yourself off from at some point because you couldn't go there. And so it was a protective mechanism, and we all did this. We all have had to do this in order to survive in the false matrix. We had to start shutting down certain aspects of self, because to keep those parts of ourselves alive in certain situations meant death. It meant being ostracized, rejected, not able to make money, all of those things. Our very survival was at risk, so we shut those parts of self down, and because of the trauma, it becomes really difficult to go back into those places and to unlock and take those parts of self back. We have a lot of resistance to ourselves, really, is what it comes down to. And blue malva helps to break through really stubborn energy that is born, like this rigid energy that is born, and it creates blocks in our lives because of fear and because of trauma. So blue malva is really beautiful to work with. You can brew it in a tea. It doesn't have a wonderful flavor. It can be covered by other more aromatic teas. But my favorite way to work with blue malva is to infuse it in oil, or to bathe in it, or for you ladies to do a yoni steam, or you can do a foot wash with it, or you can steam your face with it also. Just a really beautiful herb to work with, to help invite parts of yourself back that you've just been too traumatized or afraid to completely revisit. So that's really beautiful. We also have marigold and calendula, and it's really funny because marigold and calendula have been coming into my energy. The spirit of calendula has been coming into my energy since yesterday, and I actually ended up picking up some because I'd run out. But again, calendula is this beautiful, vibrant solar herb, very, very yellow orange, and just a joy to look at. And like malva, it's just a beautiful herb for the skin. It's deeply healing. It's antiseptic. It's antifungal. Most skin issues have a fungal component. And so when you're dealing with them, you want to work with herbs that have not only antibacterial but antifungal properties. And calendula is gorgeous. It's wonderful for problem skin situations like acne, eczema. Very, very soothing, but also very, very healing. And like blue malva, helps you when you use it and you infuse it in oil to create a barrier also, but also deeply healing and restorative. My daughter used to have really bad eczema, and I was, before I became a herbalist, I was using more conventional things like, hydrocortisones, etc. And it might clear up, initially, and then it would come back worse. But when I started making oils for her, it shifted, and calendula and blue malva were the main herbs I used, alongside, like, I think it was oat also. Yeah, it was oat I used, as well as lime flower and lemon balm. And I created an oil for her and cleared her skin up in no time. So calendula, very, very powerful. Energetically speaking, it prevents evil from entering, which is great, right? It creates a barrier to prevent evil from entering, much like it does on the skin. It creates a barrier to protect the skin from, further environmental factors that would cause flare-ups. Calendula energetically cleanses spaces. It's beautiful for the consecration of tools and objects. It illuminates and it brings the truth to light. It's a solar herb, right? So it's powerful for like divination and intuition. But one of the most beautiful things about calendula is it also brings in luck. It lifts your spirit. It has like, not antidepressant properties per se, like psychoactively, but it has this energy of uplifting. Like even when you look at the flower itself, it lifts you, right? So it's also, it's connected very strongly to Leo energy. So it can bring in fame. It can bring in fame if that's part of your, like your energy signature, or your soul mission is to be known, and you have fear around that, or you have energies that have been preventing you from being known. The marigold and the calendula can be powerful for that too. At the bottom of the deck, we do have verbena. I love verbena. Verbena is a beautiful herb to work with in offerings to the goddess Isis, if you like to do offerings and gifts. So verbena is beautiful. So it's another herb that connects you with luck. In other traditions, especially the Hoodoo tradition, it's known as Van, right? It's connected to both Venus and the Earth. It's a Venusian herb. So it can also help you connect with timelines that have to do with your Egyptian heritage, or if you have like Druidic roots. It's also, I found that it's great if you want to connect with like your Sirius timelines or other benevolent Syrian beings. So verbena also helps you to connect with knowledge and the success of bringing things forward because of, studying and applying yourself to learning something. It can also help to stoke inspiration. It's very powerful in dream work. I love verbena in dream work, and it can also be used in love energy work. And we only do love energy work on ourselves. We're not doing it on other people because that's wrong. And verbena is also great for, it's a powerful herb for uncrossing and removing certain like poisonous or intruding energies. But what I find about verbena is it works better with other uncrossing or protective herbs to boost the power of the working, right? Because it also is it's a herb that's used as an enhancer. So it's wonderful for like boosting the energy of something that is already, doing the job. Okay, so those are your herbs. I'm going to tell you again: blue malva, Malva, marigold or calendula. They're not exactly the same, but they're very similar, right? And verbena, Verbena, also known as Van, Van. Okay, so verbena is lovely in tea, just by itself. Both verbena and lemon verbena are lovely just as a tea. So you can work with it in that way. Both blue malva and marigold, I'm not fans of putting them in tea, especially not calendula. I don't really like the flavor of it, but it's wonderful in the bath. Again, yoni steams, oils. I love blue malva and marigold specifically for oils. So there's even a message there, because oil works as a sealant. It works as a protectant. So when you come out of the shower, for example, the water is what hydrates the skin, but the oil is what acts as a sealant to keep that hydration in, right? So you'll notice that if you ever just put oil on dry skin, it doesn't have the same hydrating property as when you're fresh out the shower, because it's actually water that hydrates, and water connects you to your emotional body. So if you're turning this into like a metaphysical or esoteric like comprehension of how the oils actually work, oils work as a sealant and as a protection over the work that you're already doing in your emotional body. You could say oil, when you activate it, especially when you're using certain herbs and oils, it can work as a barrier or a boundary to protect what it is that you're doing, very specifically in your emotional body and your emotional fields. So that's what I have for you. I hope that this reading was helpful, insightful, inspiring. I hope it helps you rise higher into the truth of who you are and your power. For all information on how to work with me, it will be in the description box and comment section below. If you'd like to join me for daily alchemy messages, which are free in your inbox every day, you can do that by signing up on my platform, solara.xyz. If you would like to book a soul recovery session with me, a 60 or a 90-minute one, you can do so through my Ko-Fi shop. I will put the links for that below. Please, again, my Calendly is still being glitchy, so if you purchase an appointment with me and you're not able to schedule the time you like, then please just drop me an email, solaraspeaks@proton.me, and naturally when I see that you've purchased an appointment, if you haven't already scheduled in my calendar, I will reach out to you in any case. But just so you know, again, I have 2 events coming up this weekend. You can check out information for that too. And what else? I also offer divine alignment readings and TAROTSTROLOGY readings at this point. No longer doing TAROTSTROLOGY written reports, but I am still doing the readings. So I'm sending you guys all so much love. Again, thank you for your support and thank you for being here at this time. And I will see you again soon. Take care.